Good morning, Milledgeville. It is Monday morning, so you know what that means. It is time for your Monday Morning Sports Junkie on WGUR 95.3 The Noise from Milledgeville, Georgia, broadcasting live now. I'm your host, Isaiah Smith, part of the Waking Up with Thunder lineup, and we have a full slate of football for you guys today. It was a great weekend in football, college and professional both. You had Georgia playing, squeaking by Nicholls State, Clemson barely getting by Troy, and several other, very, very good games this weekend as well. The NFL got kicked off yesterday with a great start. Several good games there as well. The nightcap was probably the best one in my opinion. And so we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. We had Georgia, going to start off with the Dogs, going to start off at home like we always do. Georgia barely squeaks by Nicholls State. And, a lot of Dog fans are wondering why was this one so close. So, read a report online that said, the Georgia football coaches were intentionally trying to put Jacob Eason in, bad situations and situations that, were not favorable to him, just to see him kind of audible out of situations and make the right reads, I guess, and things like that at the line of scrimmage. But, the question is, why would you do that? That just seems... It seems so just, I don't know, it just seems weird to me that you would even consider doing that in a game that is a game you should win. You were favored by 50 points, and you should win by 50 points. Obviously, no disrespect to Nicholls State, but, obviously they're not an SEC caliber team. So, that report, I think that report was absolutely ridiculous and absolutely false for that matter. The offensive line just played terribly. You have to be better. There's no other way to put it, no other way to, say that to the offensive line. You have to be better. They're absolutely terrible. They weren't physical, didn't fire off the ball, and you got to improve going into SEC play next week. Nick Chubb only had 80 yards on 20 carries. Team total of 167 was not terrible, but for us to win big games, I think we're gonna have to run it for 200 yards or more. We may have to get over the 200-yard mark rushing just to be in a lot of games. And then also the receivers, you got to help your young quarterback. You got to help him out more. There were several drop passes in the first half and the second half. A big one in the second half that just stuck out to me was when Michael Chigbu dropped one that it should have given us first and goal, and instead we settled for a field goal. And in the red zone like that, you got to get sevens instead of threes. It killed Georgia on Saturday, had it settled for a couple field goals, killed Atlanta on Sunday 1 for 4 if you watch the Falcons in the red zone, and it ended up killing them. It's a killer if you don't get sevens. You got to get more sevens than you do threes in the red zone, or else you're probably not going to win very many football games. And then, this kind of goes along with the drops. You got to cut out the dumb mistakes, the mistakes that just are just lack of focus, really. It was, a receiver, I don't remember who it was, but late in the game when Eason threw the interception, was trying to run just a rub route right there in the middle of the field, and, you're running it right in front of the official, so I don't understand why you thought running a pick play right there was a great idea, or even trying to, get there and run into the defender. If you don't see that you can make it look natural, just keep running your route. But the guy, comes to this weird stop in the middle of the field trying to hit the defender and get the other receiver open when he was actually open in the first place. If he'd just run the route, Eason was actually trying to go to him, not the other receiver, and it ended up getting deflected, and the guy picked it off and took it back and set Nicholls State up with first and goal in a really good spot for them. So got to cut out the dumb mistakes. Going along with dumb mistakes, another one, Isaiah McKenzie. So good, but also so bad in this one. He's been one of the most consistent wide receivers for the team this year. All year he's showing his game-breaking ability in the return game, and also in on offense with some of the speed sweep stuff, and them just getting him the ball in space and letting him outrun people. I mean, that's one of the things that he just does well. He's an athlete. He's a very fast guy, and if you get the ball to him in space, I think Jim Chaney's done a very good job of just letting him outrun people. But he had a big catch last week from Jacob Eason. Big things in the punt return game this week. Had a big return, I believe. Also scored a touchdown this week also as well. And but he also made two critical special teams mistakes that I think if you're playing, obviously Alabama, if you're playing Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida, that mistake comes back and beats you. He muffed a punt that gave Nicholls State first down inside the 20, and then at the end of the game on Georgia's last possession, he kickoff going, probably going to end up hitting once inbounds and going out of bounds, tries to catch it, right there with his, almost the side of his foot on the sideline, and it bounces out of bounds. And so, yeah, you get the ball at your 7-yard line instead of getting it possibly on the 35 or the 40-yard line, and making that mistake against an Alabama defense, you're going to punt. Plain and simple. With a young quarterback back there, you really don't want to put him in that situation, throwing from his end zone. If you do, Alabama's coming. They're going to dial it up, or any team really. Florida, the Ole Miss, Auburn, they're going to dial it up. They're going to be coming. And so you really, you have to do better especially in the special teams area of the game. It's a third of the football game essentially, and some of these mistakes are just same old things that you see under Mark Richt, and things that you got to cut out to be successful in the SEC, in that league. So, looking forward for the Dogs, going forward, heading into Missouri, you got to go to Columbia this weekend. Some of the areas I think you gotta get better in special teams. Once again, said it last week, gonna say it again this week. You have a special teams coach now. I didn't expect it to be this difficult in the special teams game this early, especially with Isaiah McKenzie being a veteran returner, Reggie Davis as well, another guy back there that's a veteran returner, and guys of that nature. But I guess maybe it's easy to understand. I don't know how much you can actually change in the special teams game. I've never actually, I don't know too much about how special teams is actually coached. But at the same time, you got to do something you've been doing for a while if you're Isaiah McKenzie, and that's just catch the football in the punt game and the kick return game. And then, the receivers, you got to help the quarterbacks out. Missouri's going to bring a pass rush. They've had several great pass rushers in the past. And so, you got to help Eason by letting him get the ball out of his hands quick, get it to some of these guys in space. Michael Chigbu, Reggie Davis, another guy who's a veteran who can help out a little bit more. Also, Isaiah McKenzie, another guy who you could really look to help out and get the ball out into his hands quick out of the slot. And maybe he can, outrun somebody and gain 15 or 20 yards. Terry Godwin, another guy who could help out there as well. Speedy guy, very good athlete. They got to help the quarterback out, and then the O-line coming back around to helping the quarterback out is just a full circle thing here. The O-line has to be better. The team can't be very good if we continue to struggle like this running the ball. Had a very, very good effort against North Carolina. Obviously, Nick Chubb getting 200 by himself, and then on Saturday, 167. Only, Nick Chubb only getting 80 yards. I don't know if there's a team that we'll see the rest of the season that'll hold Nick Chubb under 100 yards. He's back. He's a very good running back, and I don't think there's any hangover, any soreness, anything like that left. I think Nicholls State defense just kicked Georgia's offensive line's tail on Saturday, and that's just plain and simple the end of it. But, looking back on this one, you got to think that maybe, hopefully, this one kind of lights a fire under Georgia. Kirby Smart's definitely going to use this one as a teaching moment, a game to show that, we're not invincible. We're not, we're not a team that can just show up, go through the motions, and win football games. That's not who we are. That's not who anyone is in the SEC for that matter. Save a couple of games. I don't think there's a team that you can play in the SEC where you can show up, go through the motions, and still expect to win that football game on, athleticism alone. Because there aren't any, and if there are, they're few and far in between, definitely. And so, you got to show up every week. You got to come to play. You got to bring it. And, I think he'll definitely use this as a teaching moment, a moment to show that, hey, we're not as good as we think we are. Yeah, we jumped up from, I believe it was jumped 9 spots, I think, which I didn't think was very, very warranted after you beat a North Carolina team who isn't bad. They're not, they're not great either. I just didn't think the jump was warranted to get you all the way to number 9 inside the top 10. After one win, but you're going to see a lot of shake-up in the early polls, with teams losing and drastic things happening and things of that nature. But looking back on Saturday, looking at the team, everybody's saying, we found the starting quarterback. Eason's our guy. And I think that's 100% correct. I mean, I think Eason should be the guy. It's clear to me. On Saturday, he was 11 for 20, passing the ball 204 yards, a touchdown, and the 1 interception that probably could have been a touchdown or a converted first down right there near the goal line in the red zone. But I mean, he just gives you so much more offensively, the arm talent, the potential, the ability to just, to do things that, Grayson Lambert, he just can't do. Obviously, Lambert came in at the end of the game, was 2 for 4 for 2 yards, in his defense. He only got 2 series at the end of the game, and it was more of a time for him to just turn around and hand the ball off. and get the team into good set, good looks offensively against whatever Nicholls State was doing. But regardless, he's shown repeatedly, Lambert has, that he just can't throw the football down the field for whatever reason. Maybe he just has no confidence in doing it. Maybe the arm's not there. Whatever the case is, Lambert's shown repeatedly that he is not the guy. So not a bad day from Easton. He still showed a lot of youth at times, I thought. He showed the ability to make plays, obviously, that Lambert or Bryce Ramsey just can't make physically. But, I think the coaches still need to do a good job of making things easy for him, do a good job of making it simple. But as he gets more comfortable, I think we'll be impressed. He's still learning the college game. He's a true freshman, but you can't just throw him out there and expect him to get it all. After just having training camp and the spring and the summer and then the fall camp. But at the same time, he's got to grow up pretty quickly. So got to handle that situation, I think, with kid gloves, and got to kind of hope that he matures rather quickly. And it's one of the things that I think as a coaching staff for Georgia, you're going to monitor, obviously, and you're gonna look forward to as fans. But he's going to have his growing pains. There's going to be we're going to have games where he comes out there, he throws 3 interceptions, and just looks like he can't get it done, and then hopefully he's going to have that game where he comes out and throws for 400 yards and hopefully a big game, 5 touchdowns, and has one of those games. So hopefully, it'll be a process, but, for Georgia fans, trust the process. I know that's been thrown around a lot this year, but, you just got to keep trusting the process and hoping this kid's going to come along with the quarterback position, because right now he's the best you got. So, looking forward, even past the Missouri game, obviously, after Missouri, you travel to Oxford, Mississippi to take on Ole Miss on September 24th. And then after that, you're going to, return home to get Tennessee between the hedges. Now, I know this is, a little ways ahead, Tennessee on October 1st. That seems like forever away, and, we're barely, but looking up, we're almost halfway through September. And both of these are going to be tough, obviously. But looking at the schedule here around the SEC, Ole Miss gets Alabama this weekend before they see Georgia next weekend. Now, if Georgia can handle business against Missouri, that could, ease some of the physical nature of of this week, can ease off the physical nature this week against Missouri. If we just go in, handle business, hang 40, and in the first half or something crazy like that, can get a comfortable lead, and you don't have to work those. The offensive linemen can get a little bit of a break. Although I don't know if Kirby's going to give them a break because of how bad they played last week. But the defense, maybe get some of those guys, rotating young guys in, and just seeing what we have there. If you can get maybe ease the reps, get some guys 10, 15 fewer reps against Missouri this week. Ole Miss is going to be in a dogfight in Oxford against Alabama this week. Alabama's coming in for vengeance. They're coming, for bloodthirsty. Nick Saban, you already saw, he's already locked in. He was locked in the second half, I think, of that USC game for Ole Miss. But, if Alabama, that offensive line, if they can maul Ole Miss up front and just, maybe, I'm not hoping for injuries or anything of that nature. We want to see we want to beat an Ole Miss team that's at full strength, and where they have everyone out there. But if those guys aren't feeling 100%, I won't be upset. Ole Miss is athletic up front. They have a very good front seven. Their secondary is very good, still hanging on that Landshark defense name from a couple years ago. Then why? But looking forward from there. While we take on Ole Miss, Tennessee, gets Florida in a game I think that's going to go very, very far in determining who wins the SEC East in 2 weeks. So, while we're playing Ole Miss, obviously not going to be an easy game, but if we can handle business there, Florida and Tennessee is going to be an outright dogfight. In Tennessee, we might get hope for a little letdown, maybe a little hangover if they get a big win there, something of that nature. And if we can, slide through those 2 games without, I know it's a tall feat, but if we can beat Ole Miss, beat Tennessee, you're probably setting up basically an SEC East title game with Florida on October 29th. Both teams coming off a bye week. And then, as well, even if you don't beat Tennessee or Ole Miss, you got to have one of those, I think, to stay in the contention for the East. But, Tennessee plays a gauntlet in late September, early October. You got Florida on the 24th. They come to Georgia on October 1st, turn around the next week and go to Texas A&M. And the following week, they got Alabama at home. So, I think Tennessee at best is going to go 2-2 in that stretch, maybe even 1-3. I don't think they'll go 0-4. I think if there's one they're going to steal, it's one of these two middle ones, either Georgia or A&M. But hopefully they'll drop 2 or 3 of those. Georgia can handle business to that point. Take care of Auburn late. Florida still has to worry about Arkansas and LSU, who Arkansas proved they are not an easy out. And I think it may set the table for, a 1-loss Georgia to win the East, or, maybe even a 2-loss Georgia if we can beat Texas and Florida and they don't handle business in the crossover games. So that's just, a little bit of looking forward here, what you got on the horizon. But, obviously got to take care of Missouri this weekend. Got to handle your business there, and you can't let that one slip away. If you let that one slip away, obviously, that's a game that we should win. Shouldn't win by 50, but we should still win that football game. We're clearly the better team. And it's going to be tough going up there into Columbia. But we're going to take one quick break right here. We have some Adele, Set Fire to the Rain, and don't worry, we'll be right back.
Hey, so you know that feeling you get when you're done checking out and there's a big line behind you, but you still have to put your change in your wallet, and then all of a sudden the change goes everywhere on the floor, and you're like, oh my goodness, why I hate
You're listening to WGUR 95.3, The Noise.
On WGUR 95.3, The Noise. And in case you are wondering, we will very shortly, momentarily, I believe, be live on Periscope. Yes, we are streaming live on Periscope on the show's Twitter page at 953_highlight for this segment. So, in case you guys want to, see my face this morning and wake up with that, we are live on Periscope. But looking, across the board last weekend in college football, very, very good weekend. A lot of games that you saw had potential to be upsets, obviously, with a bunch of smaller, FCS schools kind of making a run at some of these bigger schools. One of the games, that we're going to highlight today, Clemson and Troy. Clemson barely squeaks by Troy. Clemson in these first 2 weeks has not been nearly as sharp as they've needed to be. The offense never really got rolling. The defense wasn't, too much better, but it was good enough to obviously get this win. And Deshaun Watson, some people saying, wondering what's wrong with him, was not, too stellar in this one. And, it showed 27 for 53, 292 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Only a 36.5 quarterback rating, and that, I believe, was the first time in his career he's had a quarterback rating under 66. So not a very good day for him at all. The running backs weren't great either. That team only had 122 yards on the ground, and if you look at them, the attack is different. The way they do it is different, but the philosophy is similar. They got to get it going on, similar to Georgia. They got to get it going on the ground, and with some of those running backs, Wayne Gallman, Tyshawn Dye, and that just didn't happen for him. Deshaun Watson was the leading rusher with 55 yards, and you got to have better effort, good effort from those running backs as well as Deshaun Watson on the ground to be successful. And another stat that stood out to me, you really don't want Watson slinging it around 53 times a game unless he's just in some kind of zone where their pass defense just can't stop him, and that wasn't the case on Saturday. So, they really need to work to establish offensive continuity. They haven't seen fluid on that side of the ball, even with Mike Williams coming back. And, Watson's not doing as much last year, to get the team going in the run game. He's having, solid days on the ground, and you can't ask too much more from him there. But he really jump-starts that offense on the ground. When he gets over 100 yards and they have another rusher over 100 yards, that's when that team's very, very good, and, they can light you up. So, really looking forward to see what Clemson does this weekend. Obviously still favored in every game thus far, maybe with the exception of Florida State, depending on what Florida State does this weekend. But it'll be interesting to see if they can get it going, or if they get upset early, and how that definitely plays out with them up there in Clemson. So looking forward here, the Battle of Bristol. Next game we're gonna kind of hit at here, Virginia Tech, Tennessee. Tech jumps on Tennessee early, and then that was about the end of it. Tennessee stormed back, 2 straight touchdowns to tie the football game in the second quarter, and that was the end of it. Virginia Tech gave the ball away several times via the fumble, and Tennessee just capitalized on mistakes that put them in really, really good positions. Obviously, I didn't think Tennessee was very dominant in this game. Kind of, it was almost a bore up there in Bristol, because Virginia Tech just kept giving the ball away and giving it to Tennessee. And Josh Dobbs was 10 for 19, 91 yards passing, better than he was against Appalachian State. Still not going to get it done in the SEC. Did throw for 3 touchdowns, but he never really threatened the defense vertically, maybe because he never had to threaten them vertically, but that's beside the point. He ran for 106 yards on 14 carries, had 2 touchdowns on the ground. And for some reason, people at ESPN and other sports news outlets are saying that he dominated the game and he was so good, and I just didn't see it. That's not true, and I'm tired of hearing it. Josh Dobbs can't dominate a game in the way that, you would expect a dual-threat quarterback to dominate the game. He can't be, Deshaun Watson. He can't be Trevon Boykin from a couple years ago. He can't be a Baker Mayfield type because he cannot throw the football well enough. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to say this before people start, listening. He cannot throw the football. But he can't dominate the game unless you just let him run all over you like he did to Florida last year when they came back and won that football game. But at the end of the day, this one was about Virginia Tech and their turnovers. Gave Tennessee several good opportunities to score, and Tennessee did what good teams are supposed to do when you get those opportunities, and they capitalized. They got touchdowns and really salted this one away kind of early. But, you won't get those opportunities against good teams. Good teams aren't going to throw you the football or, put it on the ground. I think Virginia Tech's lost 7 fumbles in 2 games, which is absolutely terrible. So you're not going to get this opportunity if you're Tennessee. You're not going to get it against Florida. Hopefully you won't get it against Georgia, and you're not going to get it going forward probably against A&M, definitely not against Bama, and against really anyone else who is of, a contender for an SEC title. So looking forward here, Arkansas TCU, best game of the weekend in my opinion. Arkansas jumped on TCU from the get-go, but the Horned Frogs stormed back, and they come back in that game behind Kenny Hill, plays, a pretty good game, I thought. One of the better games I've seen him play since he left A&M, after his fall from grace is there. And, Arkansas comes down, Austin Allen engineers a perfect 2-minute drill, ties the game with a beautiful 2-point conversion play. They run looks like a speed sweep going one way. They pitch back to a wide receiver coming around behind the play, and he, hits the quarterback over in the corner of the end zone. Austin Allen makes a great catch over there to tie the game, but like I said earlier, Austin Allen played very, very well. So, kind of that first tier game manager status, if you will. 17 of 29, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns. Can't ask for much more than that from a guy. You can't say he dominated, but kind of that first tier, just very, very good game manager for his team. The ground game was also strong behind Raleigh Williams. 28 carries, 137 yards for him. Very good to see after his season last year was lost to a neck injury very early. And TCU, shut out in the first half, played a great second half to get back in that football game. But, Kenny Hill hurt his team, actually, set Arkansas up after getting an unsportsmanlike penalty on a celebration when he scored the touchdown that put them up 8, actually. And, Hill finished 36 of 56, 377 yards in the air, a touchdown and an interception, had 93 on the ground as well and 2 touchdowns. But, TCU's got to be better in the run game. They have to have one of those backs step up. And I don't think you can rely on Kenny Hill all season to carry you on the ground and in the air. But I think overall both teams are going to be very, very competitive in their respective conferences. I don't think either one's going to win the conference. Arkansas, I think, is still not quite there yet on that level of competitiveness in the SEC to win the conference. And I think TCU may have a shot in the Big 12, but I think Oklahoma's better. Texas is going to be tough for them. I think a couple other teams that could potentially be tough out there as well. Baylor's going to be tough, but Arkansas, if you're in the SEC, don't overlook this football team. They're very, very good. Have some experience. Austin Allen, stepping into his brother's shoes there at Arkansas, and you can't take this team very lightly. They're going to win some games, and I hate to say it, but Alabama, LSU, Florida, I believe, has a crossover with them, and Ole Miss, maybe anyone else who comes across this team, they're going to spoil somebody's season. They're going to play spoiler, and even though it looks like Alabama may be the only title contender out there in the West at this point, they better come ready to play when they see Arkansas and Brett Bielema's team, because they're not going to roll over. They're not just going to take your beating lightly. They're going to put up some fight and bow their back a little bit. So good to see that level of competition out of Arkansas. A very good team. Glad to see them, staying on the right track. Not quite there yet, like I said, but they're definitely on the right track and in a very, very good position moving forward. So we're going to take another quick break. Let you guys hear some, I believe, wicked games from the weekend. But when we get back, I'll be talking some preview for next weekend, and I'll give you my college football picks.
There have been stranger things on the radio. You're listening to WGUR 95.3. The Noise.
What's up, guys? We are back. What's up, guys? We're back on Monday Morning Sports Junkie. This is Isaiah Smith, your host, and we're talking some college football preview for this upcoming weekend. Several good games this upcoming weekend. Going to start off with one of the bigger ones of the weekend: Ohio State and Oklahoma. Make or break time for Oklahoma. A loss here, I think, likely ends the playoff hopes for them. Also a big one for the Houston Cougars. They need Oklahoma to at least have a good showing in this one to, give them a boost. Tell the committee that, hey, that opening win over Oklahoma wasn't a fluke. Oklahoma's not a dud. We're a pretty good football team. We beat a good football team as well. Then for Ohio State, their first real test. J.T. Barrett been on the big stage before, but a lot of his teammates haven't, offensively and defensively. They're gonna have to bring it against an Oklahoma team that isn't where they were at the end of last year, obviously, but they're still a very good football team, and the defense is gonna have to show up. Missing Joey Bosa and guys like that, Eli Apple. The defense is going to have to show up and slow down Baker Mayfield. And this one, could end up being a high-scoring shootout, but the way that Urban Meyer, likes to run the ball and really, use that ground and pound type attack, I don't think it will be, but it could turn into that, and I don't really have a lot to say about this one. I'm just ready to see them, get out there on the field and, start hitting each other, because this one's probably going to be a good one, maybe the best one of the weekend. Both teams are replacing, a good many players on both sides of the ball. And like I said earlier, Ohio State hasn't been tested. You rolled over Tulane and Bowling Green in both your weeks thus far. And even though the Tulane game, had some weather delays and, J.T. Barrett wasn't as sharp as he could have been or maybe should have been. But, at the end of the day in this one, I think Ohio State, is going to fend off the Oklahoma Rally, and they're going to take this one 48-40. So moving a little closer to home, you got Alabama versus Ole Miss, a big SEC rivalry. And in case you've lived under a rock the past two seasons, Ole Miss has knocked off the defending national champion Crimson Tide in the past 2 seasons. They kind of have Alabama's number, and a huge revenge game here for Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. Like I said, I think he was focused on this game in the second half of the USC game. So you saw, this past weekend, he kind of chewed out his offensive coordinator, Lane Kiffin. Wasn't very happy with whatever went on there. And you heard him, a reporter ask, what was the argument about? And he, Saban, replied as only he can and said, that wasn't an argument. Those are called butt chewings. But he. And that's very well the case. That's Nick Saban's demeanor. That's who he is as a coach. He's, business as usual, all business on the football field. Really, gets the most out of his players and maximizes them there. And so this will be, I think, Alabama's first true test. Obviously, you went to Southern California this past weekend, or 2 weeks ago, but you knocked off Western Kentucky 38-10 at home, I believe. And so this is going to be their first true test. It's in Oxford on the road, so those fans are going to be rowdy. They're going to be excited. They're going to be ready to cheer their team on and hope that they can knock off the Crimson Tide, ranked number 1 in the country this season. And Ole Miss, has a very good defense. They have a lot of athletes up front, secondary who can still make plays. They're young at some positions after losing guys like Robert Kimdichie, but they're still a very, very good football team on the defensive side of the ball, and they're going to make it tough on the freshman quarterback from Alabama, Jalen Hurts. And then Ole Miss, several big receivers who can give any secondary, including Alabama's, fits. And some, even though they're not veterans, the receivers are young guys as well. They can still make, they're still going to make plays for Chad Kelly, who's a veteran quarterback, and get him the ball in good spots. So it's important, I think, for Alabama to get contributions on the defensive side of the ball from guys like Minka Fitzpatrick and Eddie Jackson, 2 veteran DBs who are really going to have to anchor that secondary and lead the charge. And then Bama, got to run the ball well with Bo Scarborough, even Jalen Hurts. And then speaking of Jalen Hurts, you got to protect him. Freshman quarterback, first true SEC road test. He's going to need all the help he can get. And I think this year, as long as you don't make the mistake of starting Cooper Bateman against Alabama, or against Ole Miss rather, again this year, I think Bama's going to win this one. They're going to get the revenge Nick Saban's been wanting, and I think they're going to have to hold off a Chad Kelly rally. I mean, he can move the ball, can run it, can throw it, and mobile quarterbacks have been sort of the downfall of that Nick Saban defense. They like to get those big thumper type linebackers in there who can really come up and hits, and those safeties who are the same way, and it's tough on them to try and chase a guy like Chad Kelly sideline to sideline. But I think Alabama is ultimately going to get this one. Their defense is going to stand up in the end, and they're going to win this one 38-35. So Florida State, Louisville, Louisville arguably the most surprising team of the college football season, has just an absolute game breaker in their quarterback, Lamar Jackson. And, maybe some people saying this is the best game of the weekend, those who aren't SEC football enthusiasts or, looking for the big crossover matchup, the Big 12, Big 10 matchup between Ohio State and Oklahoma. Some say this is going to be the best game of the weekend. I see why. You get to see two of these ACC teams get together. Get to see which one's better at the end of the day. You also get to see Lamar Jackson on a national stage. He's been on ESPN, I think, both of his previous games, but he, wasn't on a national stage. I believe one was a Thursday night game last week against Syracuse, and I forget who the opening weekend game was against, but he's arguably the top Heisman contender to this point, and he's going to go against the Florida State defense who shut down Chad Kelly in the second half. And Chad Kelly, the self-proclaimed best quarterback in the SEC, but they shut him down in the second half. And then also DeAndre Francois, his first test as well, the young Florida State quarterback, redshirt freshman, and that Louisville defense, they're not too bad either. They're not going to come in and just let him, have his way with them. So I think it's an opportunity for both quarterbacks as well as Dalvin Cook to make a name for themselves, even though Dalvin Cook's sort of already done that. But it'll be on the biggest stage, and maybe an opportunity for Cook or Francois or even Lamar Jackson to get an edge in the Heisman race. I think if Lamar Jackson helps his team win this one, and they can and he has a big game, I think he'll push himself to the top of the Heisman race early in the season here. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take Florida State in this one. I think they're going to win this one 48-42. I think their defense may just be a little too much for Francois. They're going to find a way to keep him, hold him down, make him beat you with his arm, make him throw the ball instead of just running all over defenses as he's done the past 2 weeks. And I think Florida State's going to come out of there with a win in this one. So another big SEC matchup for both of these teams, A&M and Auburn, big for both of them. A&M trying to kind of, rebuild themselves, rebrand the name, and, not be a disappointment after having a few years ago where they were, teams thought they were the team that's going to challenge Alabama, win the West, and make a run at a national title, and they end up losing 2, 3, 4 games, which isn't a bad season, don't get me wrong, but it's not where everyone expected them to be. And, Manziel's second year as a starter, or the year when they came out hot with Kenny Hill a couple years ago, really just on fire early and faded late, because their defense just wasn't where it needed to be. But the defense is better. Offense looking better and better under Oklahoma transfer Trevor Knight. And, Auburn needs a big win. They need a signature win, a win that, hang their hat on to, for Gus Malzahn and, that offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator definitely is kind of on the hot seat after what went down with the quarterback situation against Clemson. And, then last week stuck with Sean White. But still, kind of going to have to needs to show, that he's solid and can get the job done there. But, against Clemson, obviously they played close. The defense looked solid. Defense was good again last week. Offense is clearly the biggest question for Auburn. And, Sean White, he took most of the snaps in the blowout against Arkansas State. But I wouldn't rule out seeing some John Franklin III if that offense gets a little stagnant. They're not running the ball well, because he's an absolute game breaker. Can threaten you with his legs, not the greatest with the arm, but nonetheless, I think he's got a lot of potential and can be very, very dangerous, a Nick Marshall type in that Auburn offense. And then I think Jeremy Johnson's out of the quarterback race. You didn't see him on Saturday. Guy they thought was going to be the next Cam Newton a couple years ago. They said, this kid can throw it, better than Newton, has more arm talent, and and he's a big body like Newton, can run it as well. But the thing about that is, he can have all the arm talent in the world, but he throws it to the other team too much, and that's just the end of the story there. He throws just terrible interceptions, just straight to defenders and coverage that you should know that you can't throw the football there. So I think A&M's going to keep this one rolling. They're going to win this one 44-30. I think they're going to get to that Auburn defense a little bit with some of the tempo they use, and I think they have very good athletes on the outside as well. So I'm going to take A&M in that one. Then looking, very close to home, Georgia, Missouri. Already talked about this one a good bit, so I won't spend too much time here. But, big one for the Dogs. You really, really, really need a strong showing after you look just horrible against Nicholls State last week. Good tune-up before you head to Oxford, an SEC tune-up, if you will. Thought Nicholls State would be a tune-up type game, but it didn't turn into that. I think you can treat this one, got to win it, obviously. I'm not going to treat it as a tune-up, but, a good against a lower caliber SEC school. Still has talent, obviously, still going to come and fight, going to play hard, but an SEC tune-up, if you will, before you head to Oxford to see Ole Miss and then turn around and get Tennessee at home, get Florida in a few weeks after that. South Carolina's always going to be tough for that big rivalry game, and I think the key for Georgia is going to be how well the offensive line plays. If the offensive line plays well, protects Eason, gets, fires off the ball, gets, we can run the football as we should be able to, we'll win this one by 15, 20, 25 points. Offensive line plays soft like last week, doesn't protect Eason. It's not going to be pretty, and you may drop this one on the road in Missouri. But, the defense also has to come to play like they did in the first half. The secondary was just absolutely just ball hawking in the first half there. Gave up some yardage and some touchdowns in the second half through the air, but the first half they were absolutely stellar, really kept Georgia in the football game and helped them hold the lead they got. But I think Georgia's going to get back on track. Kirby Smart, I think, is going to run this Georgia program as close to an Alabama-type program as he can. And, if Nick Saban wasn't happy with a 38-10 win on Saturday, I definitely don't think Kirby Smart's happy with a 24-26 win over, a similar opponent in Nicholls State to the one that Alabama played. So I think the Dogs get back on track. Good games from Jacob Eason, Nick Chubb, maybe even get to see some of those freshman backs in there, Brian Harry and Elijah Holyfield. And I think Georgia's going to win this one 42-30. So moving, over to the Big Ten, Michigan State and Notre Dame. Huge one for Notre Dame. Got to have this one to stay in playoff discussions, obviously. Michigan State in a unique position. You got some new names, new players on offense, and that Michigan State defense is going to be, a tough matchup. They're always tough. Have a couple of very, very good interior linemen. Also have, always have a very good front seven. Secondary is going to be solid as well. And I think the matchup everybody's going to want to see, the one that's going to decide the outcome of this one, and I hope the matchup that decides the game will be that Michigan State defense against Deshaun Kaiser. I mean, Deshaun Kaiser, we know the type of player he is, showed that against Texas, but Michigan State's defense is going to be a little better than, I believe, a little better than Texas's defense. And I think, he's going to be able to get it done. Not looking for just an explosion of points offensively. Notre Dame's defense is not great, obviously, but they're good enough, I think, to get Notre Dame this win 38-32. And then Mississippi State, LSU, a game back in the SEC here. Two, you would argue, struggling programs, I guess. Both need this first SEC win, or this SEC win badly. Mississippi State got their first one last weekend against South Carolina. But, Mississippi State lost to an FCS school in week 1. They showed some promise. They absolutely beat South Carolina down last weekend. And then LSU, they need this one after the Wisconsin loss as well. And then there's just a ton of controversy around that program. Is Les Miles on the way out? Is he still, the guy there? And then, they can't pass the ball, obviously. Brandon Harris was just anemic in the passing game the past couple of weeks, but they went with the backup quarterback last week, Danny Etling, a Purdue transfer, and the coaches say he's earned a shot in practice, and he may be able to lead this team to more success than Brandon Harris, simply because he's a much more efficient passer from what I saw on Saturday. 6 for 14, 100 yards, not great, but that's still better than Brandon Harris. Brandon Harris was he's absolutely struggling to throw the football, and he has weapons out there. He has a couple guys on the outside that are, big bodies, big targets, can go up and high point the ball, can run routes, very good athletes, move well in space, can get open. So I just, I don't know. I think this one's going to be close for a majority of the way. I think LSU's still going to lean on Leonard Fournette. They're still going to look to have him do most of the heavy lifting for that offense. But I think if you show up with Brandon Harris as your starting quarterback to that game, you're giving Mississippi State permission to stack the box. Put 6, 7, 8, 9 guys in the box and really focus on Fournette. As opposed to, if you go with Danny Etling, at least they have to respect the pass. I think they'll go with Etling in that game. You may still see some Brandon Harris, but I think Etling will get the start. And if he does, I think LSU is going to win this one 27-17 behind, a decent day in the passing game, maybe 120, 150 yards. And, Fournette, I think that's going to help him greatly. It could, this quarterback change could be the move, if you will, say the move that puts Leonard Fournette back into the Heisman race. If you make that argument, he was, not struggling, but he didn't have a very good game against Wisconsin. So this game right here could be the very game to put Leonard Fournette back into the Heisman race and Heisman contention because of having a quarterback that can throw the football down the field. So we're going to take another quick break here. We got a little bit more music coming for you guys. And, after that, we're going to have a little more college football talk about some of these, smaller schools competing with bigger schools and, why that may be. And also going to talk about, got some all-clown team additions as well. And, after that, we're going to try to get into a little bit of professional football, talk some Falcons and maybe what else went on around the league yesterday. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
Did you hear? You're listening to WGUR 95.3 The Noise.
Hey Milledgeville, you're listening to 95.3 The Noise, WGUR.
What's up, guys? We are back. Don't forget, we're streaming on Periscope this morning as well. Your Monday Morning Sports Junkie at 953_highlight. Still using the old page from the highlight, but just renamed it there and made a few cosmetic changes. But we're streaming on Periscope if you want to check that out there. But looking forward here getting back into the show, into some college football talk here. Gonna make some additions to the all clown team. If you missed the first week, all clown team, that's my sort of like an all American team, except kind of the other end of the spectrum, guys who I think just really kind of do stuff that sticks in my craw. Guys who just, I'm just not too fond of and things of that nature. So if you have any nominations, please let me know. I'll try to slide those in, check that out. But definitely, so far we got Jim Harbaugh, a guy who I'm not too crazy about to begin with. Kaepernick for whatever it is he calls himself doing right now. And then, Josh Norman, I think all mouth and no action. I hope sincerely that Antonio Brown and that Pittsburgh Steelers offense just lights him up for about 500 through the air tonight. That'd be awesome. But looking forward here, my addition to the all clown team this week, Clemson wide receiver Ray McCloud managed to drop the ball on a return touchdown and just an absolute bonehead play. You can't do that. Troy's Florida State, Miami, Louisville, another decent ACC team, probably going to bite you in the butt. No excuse for that. Dabo Swinney's going to use it as a teaching moment, but still no excuse for it. You can't do that. It's unacceptable. And just for the record, anybody who drops the football too early, trying to celebrate a touchdown, you've earned yourself a spot on the team. No exceptions, no questions asked. If this continues to be a trend, we may have to go first and second team. We may have to make a team for just generally dropping the football before you get to the end zone. But that's just my PSA for the week. If you drop the football before you get to the end zone, you've earned yourself a spot. Congratulations. Your plaque will be in the mail at the end of the season. But looking forward, moving forward here, getting on through the show. AP poll, looking at that, did they get it right? The AP top 10, Alabama at 1, and Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan round up the top 4. Then in 5 is Clemson, who dropped from 2 last week. Then you got Houston at 6, Stanford 7, Washington 8, Wisconsin 9, Louisville at 10. I mostly agree. I think Houston is very, very, very underrated. They should be in the top 4, along with, I think, Clemson. I think Houston 3, Clemson 4 is the appropriate way to handle that. Just because of what Clemson, what you know they can do. You know the team Clemson can be, even if they haven't shown it. And then Houston, dominated Oklahoma over the course of that game 2 weekends ago, and then really don't get another test until halfway through the year in Louisville. But if they continue to dominate the way they have been, there's no reason they shouldn't be in the top 4. And then not sure about Washington, Wisconsin. Louisville have shown the ability to impress with Lamar Jackson, the exciting quarterback, but Washington, obviously out there in the Pac-12, a lot of people had them, tabbed as the sleeper to make the playoff out of the Pac-12, but you never can tell with that. Then Wisconsin beat LSU in week 1. They have to play a gauntlet, like we said, in the Big Ten coming up here later in the month. So, if they win that, they deserve to. If they can win all those games, I believe it's 4 games where they have just stiff competition every weekend. Yeah, you deserve to be there. But if not, you're gonna have to. You're going to have to adjust those rankings, obviously. And, it is the first 2 weeks. You see a lot of fluctuation, a lot of change there as well. But, also Michigan, I don't think they should be in the top 4. You haven't played anyone. You haven't impressed me too much. You should be, Hawaii badly. You should be, Central Florida, the way they beat Central Florida this past weekend. So I also don't think Wisconsin has any business here. You had 1 win against an underwhelming LSU team. They're not, I don't think they're, like I said, I don't think they're going to be anything special this year. Like I said earlier, they have to play a very, very tough schedule. And then, I think the committee jumped the gun on them, just like they did. I think they did Texas, have Texas sitting at 11. I do think Texas is a top 25 team, but I don't think they're the 11th best team in the country. And then, jump the gun. On Georgia last weekend as well. Dropped Georgia from I believe 9 to 16. Georgia, glad they got there, got a taste of it, but not the 9th best team in the country. Could be the 9th best team or better, but I don't think they deserve the ranking as of yet. And then I think you got to give Florida a little bit more love in the polls as well. Hate to say it, but the number 23, I don't think it's really fitting of where they should be. I think they're closer to in that 10, 15, 17 range. Luke Del Rio is an absolute stud. He moved the ball around in that Kentucky defense, even though Kentucky's not the greatest defense in the world, don't get me wrong. He still showed some promise there. So I think you got to give them a little bit more love as well. And then A&M, need to give them a little bit more love as well. Better than Iowa, who is, ranked above them. I think A&M right now is around that 12 to 15 mark. So, my top 10, I'm going Bama, Florida State, Houston in the top 3. Clemson at 4, as I said. Then in 5, Ohio State have a chance to. I think, if Clemson has a bad showing, Ohio State, plays well against Oklahoma, I think they should jump Clemson. And then, Stanford in 6, Michigan in 7, Louisville in 8, Washington 9, Oklahoma 10. Despite the loss, I think Oklahoma is still a good football team regardless. So definitely some things to look out for this upcoming weekend. Still going to see a lot of shakeup in the polls before this thing's over and done with and decided. So, moving forward here a little bit, this season, seen a lot of the FCS or smaller schools compete with the Giants, early in the season. So, people are saying, why is that? The couple of reasons I think you can point to, the talent's being evenly distributed. Obviously those 5-star guys who are, Georgia born and bred, Alabama born and bred, Florida born and bred, they're gonna stick to those programs, even if it means you're not gonna play until your 3rd year or even 4th year there. But those 2 to 4-star guys, man, they're going other places where they can play right now instead of being held out and stashed and held for later, because guys want to play now. It's just the fact of the matter. They're used to playing as freshmen in high school. A lot of these guys are uber athletic and can do insane things. They've been able to play all through their whole football career, and the idea of sitting for 2 or 3 years and being someone's backup, that just doesn't appeal to them. So I think it's a testament to these guys, how just the work they're putting in off the field, but also a testament to high school coaches. They're getting guys more ready to play from day one. And also you can credit, the camps and combines and things of that nature that these guys go to. The top guys spend a ton of time at these off-season camps getting, tips from college and pro trainers, get scouted. Coaches see what they have, what they can do, and they know specifically what they need to work on. If it's footwork, a guy can really go in and work on that in the off-season. If it's, throwing the deep ball, he can really work on that, accuracy, things of that nature. Guys can really, really go in and work on things like that. So, it's it's kind of a two-headed coin there. You love having those guys who are ready from day one, but when they come and knock off your favorite team as freshmen or sophomores, it's kind of bittersweet. You're glad to see guys get the opportunity and play, but I think it's really just a testament to, like I said, high school coaching number one, and then these camps and combines. I know one story I can think of. Jacob Eason, a guy who it seemed like every time you turned around, he was at some type of camp, combine, whatever. Over the summer, these past summers when he was being recruited, or even during the school year, it seems like he was always finding a way to get out of Washington and head to Texas or Georgia or some Florida, California, some sunnier place than Washington to go and toss the football around for a couple days. So it's a testament to that. High school coaches, hats off to you. Coaching not an easy job at any level, especially with high school where you have to play all the politics, my parent is so and so, and my kid so and so, and you're gonna so and so. But testament to that as well, and just awesome to see that happening. It's good to see the college football landscape getting more and more competitive each year, with these smaller schools getting good recruits. So just awesome to see. Like I said, not fun when your team sweats out a 26-24 victory against Nicholls State, but it's always good for the game as a whole. The overall level of competition throughout the game. So we're gonna grab another quick break here. We got a few more minutes left with you guys. I'm gonna try to get back as quickly as possible to give you a little recap about the Falcons, talk about them, and what they need to work on to get better going forward here, and maybe even preview some of the games next week. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
You know what's better than listening to WGUR 95.3 The Noise? Well, whenever I figure that out, I'll let you know. In the meantime, stick around and listen to your heart's content. WGUR 95.3 The Noise.
What's up, guys? We are back here on your Monday Morning Sports Junkie. I believe the time is around 8:40. So we still have a few minutes left to talk with you guys this week about the happenings in the sports world. Gonna transition a little bit here to some NFL football. But first, don't forget we're live on Periscope still this morning. Just kind of taking it segment by segment there. So if you missed it, want to catch up on a segment you maybe missed before, just check out the Twitter page at 953_highlight to check that out. But NFL recap gonna start at home. Falcons take not a bad loss, but a loss nonetheless to open the season. 31-24 at the hands of the Bucs. Two familiar faces, Dirk Cutter, Mike Smith, come back into town and really just kind of hammer the Falcons there for a little stretch there at the end of the first and beginning of the second half. The Bucs, they went on a 21-0 run there to go up 31-13 right there shortly after the half, and that we just kind of got staggered and never really recovered. Valiant effort from Julio, Matt Ryan, Sanu, valiant effort there, but it just wasn't enough. So looking forward, what do we have to do to be better? Got to tackle better. Dan Quinn talked about it. That's one of the keys for this team. You let Doug Martin, who is a very good running back, and Chris Sims, who's very good as well, they run all over the Falcons. At one point, Doug Martin just was just carrying tacklers. You got to wrap up, got to bring guys like that down because it doesn't get any easier. And then it came to a head. The worst point was at the end of the first half. Tampa Bay kind of throws a little dump pass over the middle, already in field goal range, just trying to maybe get a little closer, see what can just see what happens with the ball in a playmaker's hand. Jameis Winston dumps it off, and Chris Sims eludes 5, 6, 7 Falcons in the middle of the field and gets in the end zone. And you just can't have that. Somebody's got to step up and say, I'm going to be a leader on this defense. I'm going to make a tackle right here and try to get us out of this thing without giving up a touchdown. And another thing, you got to pressure the quarterback. Winston, unmolested for the majority, or for really the whole game. I don't know if he ever hit the ground, and it showed. He lit the secondary up, 4 touchdowns. Secondary is not bad with Robert Alford, Desmond Trufant, and guys like that back there. Still missing Keanu Neal, obviously, but you got to be better back there, and then you got to run it better. Only 52 yards between Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman. Very good day from Tevin Coleman, by the way, but still on the ground, only 52 yards. Got to be better there. You got to capitalize in the red zone, as I said earlier. 1 for 4 on the day. You got to get 7s instead of 3s, and then that's just kind of the darker grim side of things. But looking on the other side of the coin, what went well for this team? Good day for Mohamed Sanu in his Falcons debut. I mean, 5 receptions, 80 yards, a touchdown, one of Matt Ryan's new toys on offense. And I think, if he, sustains this type of effort, this type of play, I mean, he's a huge help. Took some of the pressure off of Julio. Julio still had a pretty good day with 4 receptions, I believe 66 yards in the touchdown. But, not too bad. Tevin Coleman also showed up in the passing game, was the leading receiver, which, could be good and could be bad. It's only week 1. Don't want to jump to conclusions and make judgments too soon. But, Tevin Coleman, 5 receptions, 95 yards, very good day from him after he spent, a good bit of last year, injured and not really in too many games. We're really leaning on Devontae Freeman. And then Matty Ice, 27 for 39, 334 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Big for him to have no turnovers after he was turnover plagued last year, if you will. And just a good day, not a terrible day. Would have liked to see him complete a few more balls and, lead this team down the field for the 2-minute drill and get the win. But, it just wasn't meant to be. He was sacked 3 times, which is not going to cut it. Offensive line's got to be better against good teams. Tampa Bay's defense is young. They're on the rise. Mike Smith is a very, very good defensive coordinator. Came into Atlanta, a little bit, a man scorned a little bit, if you will. And he kind of let it show. He got after Matt Ryan, and it just kind of piled up on the day. Matt Ryan, there were times where it looked like he really wasn't comfortable, kind of reminded you of last year, even with the additions and changes they've made on the offensive line. Then, defensively, you showed that you did add speed to that side of the ball, which is something Dan Quinn wanted to do. Devondre Campbell, Deion Jones both showed they're talented guys, going to be contributors, right now, this season. Wouldn't taken them as high as they did if they weren't going to be contributors, I don't think. But the speed showed. Got to be better tackling, though. Devondre Campbell had a terrible pass interference penalty early in the game. Got to be better there, running with tight ends and, running backs down the field from his linebacker spot. Trufant with the game's only turnover as well. Big interception. He's your shutdown corner. He's that guy. In Dan Quinn's defense, I guess you can call him the Richard Sherman, if you will. But, not a terrible showing from the defense. Did give up 31 points, but it almost didn't feel like they gave up 31 points. Thought the defense played well, but just not well enough to win. And, overall, not the worst effort. Like I said, showed a lot of fight offensively, but you can't have those scoring droughts. Had a bad one there when Tampa Bay went on the 21-0 run toward the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half. And, it really hurt. Then you got to get off the field better on third downs. It's another thing that you can do better, and it starts with putting more pressure on the quarterback in obvious passing situations. Winston, he was pressured a couple times and made to feel uncomfortable a couple times, but we never got him in the dirt. Never really got a big hit on him. So now, moving forward here, it just kind of jumps to the question of, can, this Atlanta team make the postseason as a wild card? And you have the potential. It's there. You got a shot, obviously. That's why they play the games. But you got to get more in your run game, got to get more out of your pass rush. And the NFC South is going to be much, much tougher. The Saints, not much defensively, but they're gonna try to score points. They're going to let Drew Brees throw that puppy around the yard. And, they're not going to be great, but I think the Saints can win, 2 to 3 division games and win maybe 5 to 6 games on the season. Who knows, maybe more if Drew Brees just gets in that zone. The Bucs are obviously going to be better than they were last year, showed that yesterday. And you got to account for the Panthers as well, who are bringing back basically everyone with the exception of Josh Norman, who, didn't bother me too much. I thought Julio, was going to be Julio regardless. He only plays one side of the field, which is kind of a cop-out to me, but whatever. The Panthers are starting 2 rookie corners, which was part of their demise last Thursday, I think. But overall, they're still a good football team, gonna compete for that division. I think gonna win that division. But I think the last playoff spot, the last wild card spot, could very well come down to this Bucs team right here and our Falcons. So gotta get better. If you're the Falcons, gotta have those division games. They mean a lot. Also, gotta have every other game. And, moving forward, next week you're in Oakland, a good young team again. Kind of reminds me a bit of Tampa Bay with, what they have on that defensive side of the ball, up and coming. Also, you have some veterans as well. Also offensively, up and coming as well. Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree, a very good football player, and Derek Carr, the quarterback. So got to account for that. Got to be ready and just got to come to play every week for the Falcons. So looking forward here, maybe the best game I thought of the weekend, Patriots Cardinals. Great way to close out the football weekend right there. Still got 2 games tonight, but that game closed the weekend. The Pats look like they're not going to miss a beat. A lot of people saying they already won the AFC East, which I think there may be some truth to that. And they're only going to get better with Gronk coming back. The Pats won without Tom Brady, without Gronkowski, without Deion Lewis, and several other contributors to that offense and defensive side of the ball. So I think Garoppolo looking like he's a viable starting quarterback. The Pats have their future shored up, if you will. They have that they have the future shored up. I think they're getting a 4-game look at Garoppolo, and he passed the test last night. I mean, if you're Jimmy Garoppolo, he looks like he may be a system fit. You can make that argument because Belichick does have a tendency to make guys better. But I think Garoppolo is a viable starting quarterback at just about anywhere in the league. And I think this is my message to you, Jimmy Garoppolo. You go to Bill Belichick and you get in his office and close the door, and you tell him, hey, don't trade me. I don't want to leave the New England. I don't care if I have to sit here for 5, 6, 7 years. If Brady plays until he's 55, if he play or 65 and getting his Social Security and retires, then I don't care. I'll sit and wait behind him because you're in a great situation. Obviously, and I think you may have the best job in football. You're going to have weapons around you. Belichick's coaching ability to make the guys around you better, to make you better, and it'll make the transition after Tom Brady so much easier, and they're probably not going to miss a beat. You have the potential to really stretch this dynasty out. Maybe looking at a 35-year run for this team. So I mean, regardless of that, Garoppolo still starting quarterback in the NFL. Mike and Mike this morning were talking about how he's the Patriots still have a good-looking guy back there. I'm not going to get into that too much, but Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, is a very, very good quarterback in the NFL. Going to be very good, and will make life after Brady, pretty easy for the Pats, I think. So, looking forward, gonna segue into this, a little preview for next week. Falcons Raiders might be a tough one for the Birds. 2 top receivers went off the field. Gimpy, Sanu was rumored to be limping badly after he kind of got his foot rolled up under him on the next to last play last week. And then Julio been dealing with the ankle in the preseason, like he re-aggravated it yesterday, and never can tell where that's going to go. May have to call up some guys from the practice squad. It hurts because they don't get Sanu especially won't get the reps in practice, but you got to keep moving, got to keep pushing forward. Dan Quinn may try and limit Julio's reps. Not a division game, so you never can tell with that. But I think you can't afford to give up any games if you're fighting for a wild card spot. It could come down to tiebreakers and things of that nature. So it's really just it's going to be touch and go with that. But you got to keep moving, got to keep pushing forward, and you got to keep hoping for the best. If you're the Falcons. So only got a few more minutes here with you guys. Going to try to wrap it up a little bit sooner than last week because got a 9:00 class. But got time for one last quick thing here. My bone to pick with Roger Goodell in the NFL. You're penalizing guys for quote unquote choreographed celebrations. What is that? I know what it is, but it doesn't make sense to me. You saw guys. I saw it twice on Sunday, and it's absolutely sickening to me. I saw it in the Falcons-Bucks game. I believe it was Gerald McCoy got penalized for it, and I believe again in the Cardinals-Patriots game. I know you're trying to prevent taunting and things of that nature, but come on. I mean, you're taking the emotion out of the game. It's not hurting anybody to dance around a little bit after you make a big play that you honestly, I think, deserved. You deserve to be happy after you make a big play because of how hard you have to work, how hard you have to train, everything involved in making a big play defensively, offensively, whatever it is. I think these guys deserve to be able to dance around a little bit. So stop taking the emotion out of the game, Roger Goodell. You're the consummate fun sucker. You're that aunt who is always saying, put that down, stop that, you kids sit down, stop doing that crazy stuff, the aunt wagging your fist, those darn kids, get off my lawn type thing. So, I mean, you're getting on my nerves, Goodell. You've been on my nerves with the whole Tom Brady thing. You're a clown. And it just kind of, you're just taking it a bit too far with penalizing guys for choreographed celebrations. Come on. I mean, it's ridiculous to me. But not my league, not my call. But Goodell, if you're listening out there, I'm exercising the First Amendment on that one. Don't like it at all, and you're taking emotion out of the game. So that's all I have for you guys this week. Hopefully next week we can get into some Super Bowl contenders, maybe some sleeper picks, maybe some breakout teams from around the NFL. But once again, thank you guys for listening. If you tuned in, if you missed part of the show, going to try to have it up on YouTube hopefully by Wednesday at the absolute latest. Want to have it up this afternoon, but how school can be with homework and things of that nature. So once again, thank you guys for listening. Got a lot of the show up on Periscope. We were streaming live, so a lot of it will be up there. You can watch it immediately after we sign off here. But that's all we got for you guys this week. Hope you guys have a great week. Look forward to talking to you guys again on next Monday. Remember, go Dogs this weekend. Hope you have a great week and a great weekend. And just thank you for letting me start your week and your morning this morning. This was your Monday Morning Sports Junkie, Isaiah Smith. Catch us on Twitter at 953_highlight. And we hope you guys have a great week, and thanks for listening.
You're listening to what keeps the beat and keeps people on their feet on WGUR 95.3 The Noise.